Well, I think we're now live. We're just waiting for everyone to join at the moment, so we'll just give everyone a chance over the next sort of 30 seconds or so to join.
Yeah, we'll wait for people to roll in, especially with it being coming off lunch breaks.
Okay, hopefully everyone's about there. Ryan, do you want to kick off? Is that okay?
Of course. Okay, so welcome to everybody who has joined on this cold and wet Tuesday afternoon. Thank you very much for joining our fireside discussion on exploring Horizon Europe. So, as you're probably aware, as of a short while ago, it was announced that the UK is officially part of Horizon Europe, and that gives innovators, access to this incredible pot of 100 billion euros in the Research and Innovation Fund. So we thought we'd host this discussion to sort of answer all your questions and hopefully help you guys through the process if necessary. So a little bit of an introduction. So my name is Ryan Makin. I'm an innovation consultant here at Inventure, and basically at Inventure we're an innovation consultancy based up in the northwest of the UK, and we essentially help innovative businesses on their commercialization journey. So any step that's an innovator will go through on that journey, we find that we have the tools to help innovators commercialize and grow, and that's the whole point. So I've been here for 12 years now. My background is market research, but I also help project manage on a lot of Innovate UK projects. So a lot of experience working with innovative businesses. Hand over to Paul. And Paul, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, hi, I'm Paul Allen. I head up the grant writing team at Inventure. So as Ryan said, we offer a whole range of different sort of support services to clients across the UK and into Europe as well. And in terms of grants, this is probably what we're going to be focusing on primarily during this call today. So I've been grant writing for about 9 years across all sorts of sectors and European UK funding. I spent the best part of 20 years in industry, primarily in the pharmaceutical sector as a research chemist, and then hung up my lab coat 9 years ago and got into grant writing, been doing that ever since. I'll hand over to Gerald. Hopefully his internet connection is there. Gerald, are you able to say a few words?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize because on my side, actually, the sound is not very, very good. So I may be talking over you. Sorry. My name is Gerald Busca. I work for Inventia for just about a year now. I'm an innovation consultant, but I've been working with small businesses in the UK for the last 20 years, and I've been writing grants for the last nearly 15 years now. And I'm a little bit more specialized on European fundings. And that's it for me. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gerald. Hopefully the internet holds up. So I think before we get into this discussion, actually, one thing I just wanted to highlight to everyone that is there is a comments section. So feel free to write any questions that you guys may have. So we'll be picking those up throughout the discussion, and hopefully there'll be a bit of time at the end as well for any that we may have missed. But hopefully we get to everybody's questions anyway. Okay, brilliant. So I think just to start us off, guys, I think the best place is to if you could provide us a quick overview of the Horizon Europe program. That'd be a great place to start, I think.
You okay to say a few words on that, Joel?
Yeah. Do you want me to kick off with that?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. I can start with that. No worries. So the Horizon Europe is the successor of the previous work programs. The framework programs is the flagship program of the European Union at the moment for research and innovation. It has started in 2021 and will run until 2027. It's the replacement of probably Horizon 2020, and before that we had all the framework starting in 1984, I think, with the framework program number 1, which was only 3.5 billion euros at the time. Compared to today's, there is nearly 100 billion euros to be shared. The program overall has some specific objective of scientific excellence, global leadership, industrial competitiveness, and to deal also with all the societal challenges. It has been divided mainly, for what we are concerned, into 3 different pillars, which is one is excellence in science. The other one will be all the global challenges and industrial competitiveness, which is, well, I can come back onto that later. And the third one, which Paul will deal with, it's all the innovative Europe, which is a specific pillar within that. And I will be discussing more the program or the pillar of the global challenges and industrial competitiveness, which include all the research and innovation projects in various different thematics. So this pillar has been divided in 6 different clusters. They call it clusters. So you will find all the things about health, culture, civil security, digital industry, space, climate, energy and mobility, and also all the agri-tech aspect, food, all the biotechnologies. Some of those different clusters will have some crisscross, such as agri-tech, because in agri-tech you can have robotics, for example, and AI. So will you have in health, and obviously in digital industry, you will have also those aspects. So sometimes, different clusters have specific themes, but it will go across all those clusters. I don't know if you want to develop something more, Paul, about Innovative Europe and the EIC.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Gerald. I should also say there's a number of missions as well on there that are aligned. So there's various missions that align with the Pillar 2 sections as well, or clusters, like mission on cancer, mission on soil. So there's some specific sort of areas. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And as you said, Joel, there's as part of Pillar 3, the funding, there's something called the European Innovation Council, the EIC, which is particularly relevant for SMEs, small micro entities, as funding opportunities. And as part of the EIC, we'll go into a bit more detail later, but there's a lot of funding opportunities for SMEs where you can be either a single applicant or you can apply as a small consortium of organizations for a lot of funding, again, around the innovation space. So we can dive into that in a bit more detail during the next questions, but I hope that gives you a bit of an overview.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. So in terms of the typical recipients of these funds, what do they look like? What kind of projects are Horizon Europe, sort of looking for?
So I guess, for example,
within Pillar 2, which is...
Sorry, there's a slight delay. You go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Do I have a delay? Yeah, I think so, because I hear you always after. So I was... for Pillar 2, where you have all those different clusters, there is no specific criteria on the partnership, but obviously to lead those projects, they usually they're relatively large. They can go from a few millions to tens of millions of euros. And typically you will look for somebody who has the capability to coordinate depending on the size of the projects. So SMEs are very welcome, large companies, research and technical organizations and academics, but also governments and NGOs can actually apply. But in those, you will need to have and make a consortium. The consortium typically should, not typically, as bare minimum, has to have 3 partners from 3 non-linked together from 3 different European countries, at least 1 EU member and 2 others who can be EU members or associated to the program. 3 partners is rarely the case because the projects are relatively large, and they will encompass any type of organizations. The only thing to think about is if you want to lead and coordinate such a program, I think you need some track record. So if you are a new entrant in those competitions, it is probably good to try to associate with or to propose an idea and associate with somebody who will be able to actually lead the overall project.
Yeah, it's a good point.
If you want.
Yeah, sure. Just to add on to that, and I suppose as Ryan mentioned, in terms of the UK's position, so the UK is now associated with Horizon Europe, and basically it means for any current calls that are listed in the 2023 work programme, so the current work programme, we can still apply, but the funding is actually provided by UK government under the guarantee scheme that we've got in place. Whereas for any of the 2024 calls and going forward, UK entities will be funded by the EU. So essentially you can apply now and you will be funded. It just depends on whether it's a 2023 or 2024 call, who's actually providing the funding. But you all need to apply under the Horizon Europe system anyway. So hopefully that just gives you a bit of clarity.
Sorry, Paul. There is a little difference as well, is that for people who have applied or are applying under the Innovate UK agreement, you are paid in arrears, whereas with the European Commission, usually or typically provide a lump sum up front that, it alleviates some cash flow issues. So, that's also something in the transition here, that's probably something also to consider. If you have a choice between goals, to say, well, let's postpone a bit until something that is applicable for 2024, because you will have, especially if you are a smaller entity, you will have a better deal financially.
Yeah, it's a really good point. There's a lot of benefits for this agreement that's in place, and also allows UK entities now to lead consortia as well, whereas previously they couldn't lead the consortia for some of the large funding projects.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, guys. Okay, so say I'm an innovator, and it's something I want to explore more. So thinking about the application process, then I guess the sort of next step. What is the application process like for these programs?
So it splits out, I suppose, really depending on the type of application. So Joel will go into some of these larger consortia application processes, but to give you a flavour, for example, for if you're a single SME applicant applying for an EIC, a European Innovation Council Accelerator grant, the accelerator is for what we call sort of mid-stage development. So I don't know whether you're aware of sort of technology readiness levels, but if you've got sort of a decent prototype, you've got some initial results, so your technology readiness level TRL around about 5 or 6. The accelerator program is a really good funding scheme for taking that towards commercialization. And in terms of the application process, so it's a really a 3-stage process. Stage 1 is a relatively short application. It's about 20 pages. You need to provide a pitch deck and a short video on what you're trying to deliver. If you're successful at stage 1, it's yes/no decision on that. You go to stage 2, where it's a 50-page application with a number of appendices to support that. And then it's a yes/no decision to take you through to interview. And again, it's a yes/no decision at the interview stage. So you actually present your interview, and obviously they do a Q&A to evaluate your overall proposal. So whilst it sounds like quite a long proposal, long multiple stages, it's a relatively quick process. So pretty much, depending on the deadlines. So stage 1 is a rolling application. You can apply at any stage. Whereas stage 2 is at certain deadlines throughout the year. So depending on when those stage 2 deadlines are and which one you apply for, you can typically get through to funding from your stage 1 within 6 months of the application. Joe, do you want to cover a few examples of?
Yeah, I can cover some of the. Yeah, I can cover some of the pillar 2. So the application process there is a little bit different because typically you are with a consortium, so everything is to be applied on the portal. So I will go with the typical is 50 pages application, which should be in one stage. The calls are announced every 2 years in the work program. So we are 20 to 23 at the moment. And soon we'll have 24, 25. So you have an application, as I said, of 50 pages typically for single stage. There are also some 2 stages application. So the first stage will be a 10-page where you don't really have to explain what you're going to do in terms of implementation, but you have to explain the challenge you want to resolve and the methodology you will be using. And you have 10 pages to do that. It can be quite challenging, and you should also have your consortium in place to put forward. The little tip I would give you when you find a call that is of interest is to actually click apply and actually download the specific template, because they might vary from the published general template. They may have not an extra question, because it is always excellence, which is the objectives basically, and your methodology, and explaining about the challenges. And then you have all the impact section, and then you have a third implementation, which is actually what you're going to do and how much money you will ask for. So those questions don't change, but within that you may have some details and some specific impacts they will ask you to answer. So it's always good practice to download the specific template for each of those.
Yeah, it's a really good point, especially with
did we talk about the TRL levels?
Briefly with the EIC. So yeah, if you want to mention that for the
Okay, so here also you have 2 different levels of TRL, which is research innovation actions, and you have also the innovation actions. So research innovation actions you will be funded 100% typically. You have to check call by call, but typically, and the TRLs here are relatively low, so 3 to maybe 4 or 5. Sometimes it can be TRL 2 starting, rarely, but it happens. And then you have the innovation action where you will be funded at 70% typically. You have to check call by call. And here the TRL will be more from 4, 5 to 6, 7. Rarely above, rarely below that. And there is another type of action as well, which is the coordination and support action, where even for an SME that can be interesting to participate in those. And it's more to support actually specific topics in the different health or industry or creativity.
I was just going to add, there's a really good point about the templates, because the European Innovation Council, especially with Accelerator, has undergone a number of changes over the last few months, and they are updating the templates quite regularly. So, like you say, it's always good to download the most up-to-date template from the EU's portal to check that everything's covered in there. You've got all the questions, and you know what appendices you need to add, and whether there's any changes to the admin forms as well.
Yes, I mean, using the portal can be a little bit daunting if you never gone through it, but actually you have to go through the motion. I mean, we can help you anyway, but it's a question of going through the motions really, and trying to. Sometimes the EU lingo can be a bit difficult, but at the end it's not that difficult.
Great, thanks, guys. So as an applicant, what would you say in your experience is the sort of the best way to identify suitable funding opportunities?
So I suppose the portal itself, the EU portal, is a good place to start to look for calls. You can do various searches. So just looking at it at the moment, just brought it up. There's currently 432 grant opportunities that are open specifically in Horizon Europe at the moment. That's 285 that are open and 147 that are coming up soon. So there's a huge number there, and obviously you can then start to search keywords, or you can go into what they call the work programs, where you can, for example, if you're working in the healthcare health space, you'd look at the health work program and try and identify any potential calls. You need to be very mindful that, depending on what timelines are, these things, especially if you're having to develop a consortium from scratch, that does take time. Typically, a couple of months to develop a consortium, get everyone on board and get them all signed up. So you don't really want to be leaving these things to the last minute. So if you've got a very tight deadline, it might be worth considering, well, actually, can we go for this now? Have we got, enough expertise and so on to bring the consortium together in time, or is it worth looking for alternatives? But yeah, there's sort of the funding portal is a great way to start, and looking at the work programs in a bit more detail to find calls. Don't know if you want to add anything.
I think that covers it. Yes, it's to be prepared and to look at the work program and kind of strategizing, over the few months in front of you where you could actually apply through keyword search and understanding how the work program is structured. Even the EC actually advised to actually start to look at the consortium and to approach potential partner even before they open the call, really.
Yeah,
because
really good.
If you have 1 month to go, and even if it's very clear in your head what you want to do, and you don't have a consortium, it becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah, and even applying for the single applicant SME competition like the EIC Accelerator, obviously administratively is somewhat easier because you're a single applicant, but it still takes time. You've got to, even for the stage one, you've got a 20-page document that you really need to hone. You've got to develop a pitch deck, which you might well have, and record a video, which can take a bit of time to get together. So, it's giving yourself at least a month, ideally, probably, in an ideal world, 6 weeks or so to develop an application for even a single applicant EIC Accelerator.
Yeah, makes sense. So the more time, the better.
yeah, definitely.
That's from the writer's point of view, definitely. I think it impacts also the quality, of the application at the end, because, the more time you have during the last week to actually review something which is completed at 99%, you're improving massively, and that's how you get the grants. If you just applying with the 99%, you won't be there. Even if you have good partners, a good idea, it's making the story compelling takes time.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. So staying on the sort of application process, then you guys are very experienced in the the application process. But what are some of the main or most common mistakes that you see sort of people make in the application process?
I think probably one of the key ones is making sure that your project fits the call you're applying under, so the competition requirements, whether it's the scope, for example, in a Pillar 2 application, a research innovation action, but also similarly with an EIS accelerator, it needs to make sure that your project, your idea, and what you want to do fits within the eligibility requirements and the scope. So a bit similar to Innovate UK, there's sort of, there's both the eligibility and the scope requirements that sets out what the competition, what the call wants to achieve. And you need to be able to hit, if they say they want everything, you need to hit everything, you can't just be selective and just go, I just want to do that little bit. You need to be able to make sure that you meet all the requirements to give yourself the best chance of getting funding.
Yeah, I think also, so that goes with what Paul says. It's about the consortium as well, is to make sure that you can do everything you say you're going to do and that it sticks, so that you have actually the roles and the skills are aligned with what you're proposing to do. That's quite a common, and that your budget also is aligned with, and that can go both ways. It's either you have partners or people who are asking for a lot of money with little justification, and it goes the other, and where you have somebody very, very keen who will do quite a lot and is capable, but will ask for too little money, and that you will be seriously marked down for that, because how can you if you don't have the money to do it? So on the budget side, I think my mantra is, if it's within the rules and you can justify, we put it in, because the money is there for that, to support you realizing what you need to realize to achieve the impact that the call is asking. Matching the impact as well to the output of your project, and being very, very clear. So one of the difference with the previous framework and Horizon 2020 is the section 2.3 on impact, where they ask you actually to draw from your outcome of the project, so the specific deliverables, and how you will go through to impact 5 years down the line, let's say. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a useful tool to make sure that everything is aligned, your objectives, impact of the call, outcome, and impact of the call. Yes, I think being in scope as well, because you could write something fantastic and you're out of scope. And that shouldn't happen, really. You have to read what the call is about. And it's also thinking in Pillar 2, it's thinking what each topic as well is actually looking into. So it's reading the introduction of the work program and seeing what are the overall challenges that the EC, the European Commission, is trying to resolve, and actually discussing that. A lot of people fail to frame the challenges and don't have a clear value proposition that answers those challenges, and that will be mark you down as well.
Just an extra.
The 50 page is not a target; it's a maximum. So the lighter and the more graphic you are, the lighter, the simpler you are, the better, because there will be assessors who will be reading that, and they need to understand first pass. So if you are convoluted and it's very text heavy and there's 50 pages to read, not a good start either. And that's really on the person to person thing, that there are people on the other end that are going to read and assess.
Yeah, I was just going to add your points there were really good, Gerald, in terms of the consortium as well, and the call. To make sure you meet the call, sometimes you have to think a lot broader than your initial idea. You might have sort of like a core consortium for developing what you want to do, but you have to think a bit broader. For example, you might need to bring in wider end users or even sort of public groups as part of the consortium to really make sure that you hit all the points in the scope. And like you say, ensuring that you're going to deliver all those impacts. You need to probably think sometimes a bit bigger than what your initial plans might be. And that might seem like a bit of a challenge, but it also gives you a great opportunity to work with a whole range of different organizations that hopefully can help your business down the line and do the project itself, but developing links with other organizations across Europe, which can be a real benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that this European program is, of course, there's a lot of money to be granted here, but it's also the coordination with other entities and to actually benefit your business. That could be to sell abroad, or that could be to integrate some technology from other people into your company. So it's not just how much we give as a country and how much we receive. It's also all the other benefits in developing those proposals and working together.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. So just noticing that we've got a question in the chat here from Michael, and he asks, what's the match funding requirements for the EU Horizon grants?
So I suppose in terms of the, for example, the research innovation actions, which are 100% funding, there's no match funding required, although you will need a little bit may not need much upfront funding because the EC do fund you upfront to get the project started. But for an innovation action or a European Innovation Council accelerator, they're 70% funded, 70% funded. So there is a 30% match funding element to those. But again, they are typically front-loaded with sort of up to 40% funding at the start of the project to get the project up and running. So that is a benefit if it is being funded through a 2024 call compared to, for example, Innovate UK or currently where we are with the association agreement with the UK guarantee with Horizon Europe, where the Innovate UK are funding. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an answer. I don't know whether there's any follow-up to that. We can always come back if there is.
Yeah, we can circle back if need be. Well, thanks for that, Paul. So just before we move on to the eligibility sort of criteria side of things, is there any sort of final tips that you'd give to anybody regarding writing a successful application?
I think just stressing start early, start talking early, start trying to identify the calls early that you might want to go for. Really look into the detail and make sure that you do fit before you commit to too much time and effort. But there's some fantastic opportunities out there.
Yeah.
Do your homework, basically.
Yeah. Do your homework, definitely. Identify the challenge and the problem you're trying to solve. And what are the needs of your end users as well, and then explain a few paragraphs on what is your solution and how that answers actually those challenges. That's a good place to start to have a good value proposition, a good concept, and then you can write a good story and then look impact by impact, who you need, how you're going to achieve those impacts. So that can be, then you develop a specific task for it, or you invite somebody to participate to do specific work on it. But at the very start early, think about it. What is the actual problem I'm trying to solve and how I will solve it? When you've got that value proposition and it's in scope, then you have a chance like anybody else.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Gerald. Okay, so as I say, so moving on to the eligibility sort of criteria then. Firstly, what is the eligibility criteria for these programs?
Well, I can continue because for me, I will be very short. There is not a lot of eligibility in terms of what type of company you are. Large, small, research organization, universities, government agencies, NGOs can participate. So typically they will ask a minimum of 3 different European partners, so to be registered if you want in 3 partners who are registered in 3 different European countries or associated members. So one of those have to be a European member of the European Union, and the 2 others can be from associated countries. But typically those consortium are a bit larger than that. I would say they would go from 4 or 5 for a small project to 20 plus for very large projects.
Great.
I should say, in terms of associated countries, that includes obviously the UK, but also the likes of organisations in Norway, Iceland, Turkey. So there's quite a wide range of organisations you can work with, and certain calls in certain clusters, for example, health, can include US entities as well, and they're eligible for funding.
Japan.
And so, yeah, so there are quite a wide range of global organisations that you can work with on a lot of projects. Now, the funding requirements might vary, so it's good to get an understanding, but it does give you an opportunity to work with a wide range of organisations.
Brilliant. And you just touched on the sort of the size of the company or business there, Gerald. So just to confirm, startups and small businesses can apply for these funds. Then there's no sort of requirements on size. No.
There is no requirement on size whatsoever. And
So
everybody's on the same rate as well. So the constraint is really, if you want to lead, you will need to be able to have the capacity to coordinate such projects. So if you're a starter or a smaller company and you don't have track record, but the track record could be, through Innovate UK, to say that you have managed grants, you have managed partners, and know that you're managing projects at large anyway. That could be valid, but that will need to be demonstrated really. But otherwise, there is no actual constraint. This is just, it would be a bit strange to have a very small company leading a 30 million euros project over 3 or 4 years. It's not really credible. It's just a question of credibility there.
No, it's good to know, especially with more companies these days taking advantage of Innovate UK's grants, that sort of thing. So a lot of companies will have sort of that experience in the bank, which is really good to know. So we just covered off the size of the business and the applicant, but is there any sort of sector specific restrictions or preferences at all? Anything anybody needs to be aware of?
Well, in pillar 2, no. As long as you answer the specific clusters, which covers really all type of industries, there is no. So you can't have any military application in cluster 2 and 3. But if it's civilian, you will find some code that will apply to what you want to develop.
Cool. Okay.
On EIT, I don't know, Paul, there is no restriction either. It's all open. Yeah. So there are some challenges, though. There are some challenges that will be sector or technology specific.
Yeah, definitely. We haven't got any new challenges open at the moment, but it's a good point. So, for example, in the accelerator, there's certain challenges, and they can be specific topics in health or digital. Also in the Pathfinder, which is an earlier stage TRL projects. Again, there's an open call and also challenges. We haven't got any new challenges yet. They're due to be announced very soon. I say, being SME programs, you obviously need to be a small or micro entity, but that's the only sort of requirement. And that's by the EU rules in terms of the measurement of SME. And that's well defined.
Brilliant. No, good to know. Good to know. Okay. Finally, in terms of the sort of eligibility criteria, what's the evaluation process like?
It's very similar, I suppose, between the two programs that they're looking for, as Gerald said, in terms of excellence, impact, and then implementation and risk. So they're looking for, excellence in terms of what you're doing. It's clearly better than what's currently being out there, so it's highly innovative. It's got a great market potential, assuming that's relevant to what you're doing. It's obviously gonna need to have a great impact, and you need to be able to describe that impact, and that impact is going to be, on the market, on the user, on you as a company, on your value chain. And then in terms of the risk, obviously they want to fund risky projects, but be able to be managing those risks and have good mitigations in plan, but also have a good implementation plan. So they need to be able to understand what you're trying to deliver on the project, and that is good value for money in terms of what you're delivering, how much that's going to cost. So it's sort of similar criteria really between the two. Don't know whether you want to add anything, Joel.
No, I don't think so. I think in terms of impact, it's really answering all the impacts that the call requires. And if you have some other, wider impact also, but those wider impact relate to what we were talking earlier of the topics challenge. So you need to draw those potential wider impact as well into the application, because the call will give you, we expect that this call will answer all of these impacts, which is easy then to structure. But then you need to look at the other work program and the wider challenges, on greenhouse and diversity and other things need also to be answered.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Makes sense. Okay, so just moving on then. So say, I'm a successful applicant, my application has gone through and it's been accepted. When I receive, my funding, are there any sort of restrictions, on how those funds can be used?
And it follows similar to Innovate UK, really. If you've got your work plan and they're going to expect you, that you've got in your application, they're going to expect you to follow that work plan, unless obviously you need to make certain changes due to, you're doing R&D, so things might not go quite according to plan. So you can usually, adapt that work plan and any cost implications, but you can't ask for more money, but you might be able to move funds around different groupings, whether that's, between labour and subcon costs. But yeah, it's going to be very much sort of followed on a, milestone basis in terms of what milestones you're achieving, and what's set out on your work plan.
Yeah, typically you will have a 4 or 5 months from the time you're actually applying to actually starting work. So it's worth bearing in mind. And once you've been successful, you will need to go through the grant agreements. So where you will actually agree, and that's when actually everything becomes official. So up to that point, it's only a proposal. You're not tied to anything. But once you've signed the grant agreements, then things are official and work will start.
Brilliant.
Notice we had a question, sorry, Ryan, from Paul Stockill, but I don't know whether it got cut off halfway through. It says if we had a UK innovative grant. Sorry, there's more added. So we had a UK Innovate grant for a phase 1 project using additive manufacturing. Can we apply for a Horizon grant to do a phase 2 of the innovation? Yeah, I mean, certainly if that grant is completed, so the phase 1 project's completed, so you're starting from a certain point, depending on how far you got in that phase 1, there certainly should be some good opportunities for you to look for a Horizon grant. Obviously, you need to make sure it aligns with the specific core requirements, whether it be an EIS accelerator or a Pillar 2 type application. But yeah, it's always good to be starting from previous results.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's a question.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So in terms of, once the funding has been received, what's the sort of reporting process like? How am I as a recipient going to be sort of held accountable for the funding that's been received?
So I guess it's following similar to Innovate UK to a large extent in terms of, as I say, meeting milestones, checking you're aligned with your project plan. The officer that's been assigned by the EU to help you with your project, and you're keeping them informed of what's going on, and you're delivering your like midterm report and so on. So as long as you're keeping good records of what you're doing and what you're delivering in your project, there shouldn't be any issues.
Yeah, and they're also, from my experience, want to know that you've got a sort of robust, risk mitigation strategy and process in place as well. So, with innovation comes risk. It's just the nature of the game, and it's, we don't see any of these projects go through without any risks occurring, but it's how you deal with those risks and having those plans and strategies, contingencies, mitigations in place. So I know that's definitely something that the margin officers, reporting back, are definitely interested in finding out more about. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. So Gerald, you touched on it typically in terms of timelines, but just for anybody who maybe didn't hear, so what's the sort of typical timeline in terms of applying for and then receiving the European funding?
Applying for, I think if you approach us, ideally you would be 2 months before the deadline, really, at least with some sort of concept that we can potentially help with that, and to have some role defined to get the consortium together. So yeah, two months. If you have a good idea or a process that you want to develop anyway, it's quite clear, then yeah, you would need 2 months. The calls are typically open for maybe 3 to 4 months. Sometimes a bit shorter, but they would be. But they are announced 2 years in advance. So scanning them, at leisure, really in advance, then you could mark some that you think, and making a little strategy around that, which we can help as well. It's a really, really good way, because then you can have other opportunity on smaller grants or national grants, you can have some stepping stone to get where you want to be. But let's say if you identify a call, or we identify a call for you, with 2 months to go, we can build a reasonable consortium and a good application. And then, as I mentioned, I think 4 to 5 months to actually get to grant agreements. You have to keep in mind that the larger consortium will take a bit longer in terms of grant agreements, because you have more people to agree. But when that is done, it's so typically two plus. So it is a 6 to 7 months business, really, from having the idea and saying we want to apply for that to actually starting the work.
Yeah, whereas the IC accelerator is a bit quicker in certain respects, whilst there's more stages to go through, the turnaround is a lot quicker. So it's typically 4 to 6 weeks between each stage. So in stage 1 and stage 2, and then the interview is usually sort of 4 weeks post the interview to give you a yes/no decision, and then another month on top of that to, like Gerald said, get a grant agreement in place. Where you're a single applicant, it's a bit quicker. So they are looking to try and turn around the IC accelerators somewhat quicker than a lot of other calls and competitions.
Okay.
But for the smaller companies, if you haven't participated in any large Horizon proposal, is to try to get involved in one of those grant applications as a partner. It's really the good way to start.
Yeah, and there's a number of networking events that happen. I mean, UKRI run them as well, and there's a number of sort of EU ones, especially when a new work program opens up, which will happen. So it's a great opportunity to start sort of networking with organisations and see if you can join a consortium, or even form a consortium based on a project idea.
Definitely.
Yeah, because often when you read the call, you will see that you can actually answer very well some of the challenges or some of the impacts or some aspect of the call, and that's what you have to put forward to say, we have those capabilities, and that's the role we would like to play within that, and you will definitely find coordinators or people who are leading the call who would take you on board. And we're always also happy to hear about companies' ideas and see if we can actually invite them and insert them in some of the proposal we're writing.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's really good to know, Gerald. Thank you. So in your experience, guys, is there any sort of success stories, of companies that you've worked with that you sort of maybe like to shout out? Companies or businesses that have sort of benefited from the programs before, and what the sort of impact of that funding had on their business. Is there anything you specifically would like to shout out?
Yeah, I suppose one example relatively recently, so we won just under €2.5 million for a company called Afon Technology. We've been working with them for several months, and we identified the EIC accelerator as a great opportunity for them. They're developing a truly non-invasive real-time blood glucose sensor for diabetics to be able to monitor their blood glucose in a really smart way. And so we relatively recently won them this €2.5 million EIC accelerator grant, which is really enabling them to finalize the designs of the technology, the sensor, which is a wearable, and get it into really crucial clinical trials to be able to test it. So they've done a lot of fantastic work already, but this is to really give them the sort of the funding to get really get them close to market and be able to get it into to patients, because there's fantastic benefits from being able to not remotely, but non-invasively measure blood glucose for these people. So it's a really exciting project. We're actually working with them on another project at the moment as well. So it's been great working with them on this one, and we're enjoying working with them on other areas as well.
Thanks, Paul.
I know we've worked on
the larger program.
Go ahead, Joel.
Can you hear me? Sorry, it's breaking up still again. Sorry for that. On our side at Inventia, we not only we write those proposals and support partners, but we also participate quite heavily, I think, for the company we are in different projects. So one of the projects is Convince, for example, on robotic and human-robot interaction, and we support some larger institution in not only developing the proposal, but also doing some tasks in different work packages. We also participate in CSA, so that those are coordination and support actions to support typically SMEs in specific sectors across Europe. I'm writing one at the moment. So we're quite well versed actually at developing and participating in those projects, because we have the capacity in terms of innovation and idea generation and formulating, developing the proposal, but also all the services that are around coordinating and compliance of the projects, dissemination. So we have, we don't just talk about it, we also do it, I would say.
Yeah, very much so.
Definitely. Brilliant. So I think that comes to the sort of end of my questions. Was there any sort of final points you guys would like to raise before we sort of finish off for the hour?
Just hopefully everyone can appreciate that their UK entities are available to apply for European funding. There's some great opportunities out there. We obviously support UK entities, but we also work with a number of European companies and research institutes as well, and a whole range of different EU applications. So if anybody's got any sort of follow-on questions, they want to set up a call with us, we're more than happy to have a discussion to scope out some ideas, see if there's any potential calls, competitions that might be suitable. So I say we're more than happy to have those discussions to see what possibilities there might be for any individual companies or organizations.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, same on my side. I think if you have an idea or a specific sector or a specific technology you're looking at developing, we're always happy to have a quick chat and see what would be applicable. and also direct you, is it better to do an EIC, or would it be better to do a smart, or actually is there a call, and how we could approach a larger call for you to develop? Because it's always better to have a few calls inside and see where to apply first, and then what can you do, and if you win or if you don't, what you can do. It's always good to have those discussions. Because then you're prepared. Actually, you are prepared.
Yeah, definitely. Agreed. Thanks, guys. Okay, well, I think we're 5 minutes ahead of schedule. So I hopefully this was really useful for everybody who's joined today. Thank you very much for joining. What should we do, guys? Should we stick around for a couple of minutes and see if there's any questions that come in? So so if you've got any questions at all that you'd like answering now, please just drop them in the comments. We'll stick around for a couple of minutes and we'll try and get those answered for you. But if not, thank you very much for joining. And good luck for everything.
Yes, have a good afternoon then.
See if any questions come in, guys.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart. Yes, it will. Sorry, Ryan, that's your role.
Oh, no, you're good. No. I think you know more than me. I think it'll be available on the YouTube channel. I think, won't it? And I think we're also. I think we could disperse the recording afterwards. Although, I think we can. But it'll definitely be available on the YouTube channel. I know that.
To answer Tom, how large? You don't necessarily need large institution. It's always good, depending on what call you're applying. You need people who can actually do the work that needs to be done. But it's true that there are, a lot of institutions that carries, a lot of credentials. So those people will be at an advantage. It's also because they write so many of those that they are involved. So large. It's always good to have some larger institution in terms of universities, and to have credible partners there, either research and technical organizations or university folks who are at the top of their game. Then when I look at Inventia's projects, the university we work with, they are world leading, really. Otherwise, it can be a little bit at a disadvantage. But I think that the size, not necessarily. You could be all sort of smaller companies, and if everybody has a clear role and everything is well explained, there's nothing compulsory. It's just stressing that yes, some larger institution will have better credentials.
And just add that the EU do like SMEs to be involved in these consortia. They like SMEs to be part of the consortia, definitely, because obviously that's a great way to be able to exploit certain technologies, but also be able to help support SMEs grow.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I think I don't see any more questions coming in, so we could probably leave it there, guys. If you're happy to.
Yeah, brilliant.
Good, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I'll speak soon. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.